Hey listeners, welcome back. We are hitting you as we promised once a month, Avocation to Climb, an Xbox Gamerscore podcast. Well, look, really a gamer whore podcast, I think it's fair to say. As we're going to dive in this month, it is, I think I've been listening around. It's the only podcast that's hitting you with probably three of the four most active gamers, maybe in the world, but look, definitely in Australia at the moment. It's my pleasure to be joined by the returning number one for Australia, Memphisto for the win. How are you tonight, Mem?
I am great, thank you, CJ.
And hot on his heels, although if you did listen to our first episode, you will know this man threw down a challenge. He called him out. He said there was nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. He was coming for him, but as we can see, he's still coming. He's still coming, Memph. And I'm talking, of course, of Jeremy J1. How are you tonight, Jeremy?
Hello, everybody.
So look, before we get into it all, I think we should throw out the numbers here, because you guys, well, actually, before we throw out the numbers, I want to ask you both, because, you know, watching on from the sidelines, I was sort of like, the month started off normal and then it just got crazy. And in the back of my mind was like, had you both planned to have a massive month, or did this just like randomly happen, Memph? What's the thinking behind this?
Well, to answer your question, I didn't plan to have a crazy month. I started the month as normally as I do, and I saw that Jeremy and Eden Weeks, I'll do the numbers in a minute properly, but they'd done double me in the first week, and I thought, oh, here we go, Jeremy's going to get me. And then COVID happened in my city, Adelaide, so we had a week lockdown, and I decided that was a good enough time to do all the Windows 10 title updates, because I'd been sitting on them. And yeah, then the month just went crazy from there, and I caught back up to Jeremy and Eden for the month, and then we kept rolling on, and they kept doing games, I kept doing games, and yeah, we ended up all doing just over 72,000 for the month.
So I want to ask you, Jeremy, like, I know you're used to big numbers as well, but did you plan on having this month, or did it just sort of happen?
Well, it's kind of honestly a bit of both of my circumstance. I mean, I wasn't really like 100% planning it, but then it's just like, oh, okay, here we go again, and here we go again, and here we go again. More Stallion tire updates, and then guess what? Guess the hell what? Tile updates from other publishers sort of happened at the same time. I mean, we got tile updates from other publishers, and now they're doing 1,000 tile updates as well. I mean, if there is now a way to just do it now publishers cannot tell us that they cannot do it, because now the proof is in the pudding. They're starting to learn that they can do it, and they're starting to take advantage of the system that we talked about last month.
Yeah, not just Zidalon anymore, is it? It's
not just Extelion. I mean, it's not just all their poly and whatnot, and I'm a bit unsure if I'm honestly okay with it 100%, because it's just like, okay, well, it's nice to have a 1,000 J, but at the same time, I mean, it really just doesn't bring any more value to the game. I mean, if it really just is going to be a simple tile update where you're just doing something that you didn't do last time, and then it's just like, for me, it just doesn't add anything to the game. It just literally adds zero content to the game.
You're right. Most of them don't add anything. But the funny thing with this month has been is, yeah, we got a heap of title updates and stuff we probably weren't expecting, but there was a lot of easy releases as well. Like probably definitely more than the last few months I can remember. So it kind of compounded as both at once, and we were all able to just do these ridiculous numbers. There's people that I know that did way more than us as well. So yeah, it's I looking back now, like obviously I can see what I played, but I couldn't even tell you much of what I did, and I did 72,000. So it's 72 complete games, and I couldn't even name half of them. No way. So they kind of just all blend in to one when you're playing so many so quickly.
It is so that is so true, because like we're delving obviously here into the Xbox, but I've been a little sidetracked by the Pony box, and my numbers are not dissimilar to yours, but on the other system, on the dark side this month. So
Yes.
I totally understand what it's like living in a blur of games and trophies, Gamerscore or platinums. But look, just before we touch those numbers, Memph, one of the things that I love about this show, it's different, listeners, to many shows, is that we don't have a lot of communication, throughout the month. Like these guys, they can only bite at the bit so much with the Sony Pony, and we hook up once a month to do this sort of thing. But one of the things, when we finished last time, I could feel the sort of tension, I suppose, in the air. I could feel Jeremy. He wants this number one, Memph. Did you think at the start of this month, or I suppose the start of July, coming into this big month, did you think you were on the ropes? Did you think he might get you this time?
Honest to God, I thought after doing the podcast and walking away and what Jeremy said, he's chasing me down, which he's been chasing for a long, long time, to be fair. He's been putting up huge numbers for a long time, so it's nothing new. He got within about 8,000 or 9,000, and I thought this is probably the month where he gets me. And then we went into the snap lockdown, and that's when I did all the title updates. I always had those title updates on Windows 10 up my sleeve. So I knew I had I don't know exactly how many there were, but that day we also got that color game. I can't even pronounce it, and that Madeyepadeye game. They all came out on that same day. I decided to do all my title updates. So once he got with, I don't know if you remember how close you did get, Jeremy, but you were within about 8,000, so pretty close. And then I decided to do all the updates because I was home. If we didn't have the lockdown, I think Jeremy would be ahead of me right now, honestly, because I can't really, I can play the Windows 10 stuff, but I have a Mac. Well, it's my wife's, but we have a MacBook, so we're running Windows 10 on that, which doesn't really run properly. So I can't really play, and it's taking up the whole family computer as well. So I can't really just sit on it all day. So I had to kind of pick my moments that I could do a Windows 10 game here, Windows 10 game there. And the wife, she doesn't hate the gaming, but she despises it at times. And when I'm using her MacBook to do it, it's even worse. So I've got to be very careful when I decide to ask if I can do it. And luckily enough, that first day of lockdown, the opportunity presented itself, and I jumped straight back up to 20,000 ahead of Jeremy again. And I think that's roughly where we are now, and it's where we've been probably for a few months running. He will get me. I know he will. It's coming, but I'm fighting for as long as I can.
And look, I've got to flip this around back to you, Jeremy. You see, Memph is obviously, he's not giving up or whatever this month. At what point in the month did you go, fuck it, he's gonna be number one again for another month? Was there a point where you realized that, or are you you're not conceding
honestly,
that?
I'm not really shocked that he was eventually going to respond and eventually go on crazy with everything that was going to be happening and whatnot. And I actually didn't realize that he actually was also on his own lockdown as well, to be quite honest, because I wasn't actually sure like where he was at the time. But now that he has said that where he's from, Adelaide also went into a week down lockdown. I mean, I did eventually think that he was probably going to respond, and he did, and he went back up about where we started, I think back in
Yeah,
June or May or something like that, when I was also about 26, 27K behind or something like that. So he pretty much has gained back on being 26, 27,000 ahead. So I never really had any doubt in my mind that he was going to respond. But, at some point, like he has said before, it might come to an end. And when it does come to an end, he put it really himself. He said at the end of the day, if that's how it is, then someone else deserves to be number one. I mean, that's what he
that's
said,
right.
not me.
I'll be first to congratulate you when you pass me, Jeremy. I have no hard feelings. It's a friendly race. It's nothing more than that. Even if somehow Eden comes and gets us,
He can do it like whenever, and when Wall comes back, well, he'll be just typical Wall, and he'll be, oh, let me just think about my pun here. He'll be going Wall, and he'll be bouncing back before you know it.
that's right. Yeah,
That's right. And a quick shout out to Rogue 1992. He's on a sabbatical at the moment, which makes me very nervous as well for when he
as
does come
Arnold
back. But
Schwarzenegger would say it in his voice, "I'll be back."
that's right, and I'm looking forward to it because he's going to slay all of us in the month that he does
He
come
will
back.
slay all of us, and he'll probably go to number one instead. So watch out for him.
He'll drop 150k that first month back because he's done none of this stuff
He
that
might
we're doing.
drop maybe 170, 200. You never know.
He might.
He might.
But I did notice that we're over 100k clear of him at the moment, which is good because that's what he's going to do when he comes back. So
yeah, that might only last about a couple of days. So
yeah,
once he's back on, forget about it. Just forget about it.
I don't think he's nervous yet. So look, we should jump across the numbers. Isn't it refreshing to hear the number one and number two? You would think there was like animosity and bitterness and this bastard, he never lets go. But this mentality, it's not on the Xbox. It's just wonderful to see this open, loving. Look, I'm going to pass it over to you. And at this point, I'd like to give old Meet the Fucker a shout out over there on the PlayStation, whichever country you are in, sir. It looks like I'm catching up to you slowly.
Aye.
So we will look very slowly. But I tell you what, the acquisition of the PS5 has definitely helped. But let's move over to these numbers, Miff. I want to hear how far back I fell from number one position this month.
Well, do you know how many you did this month, Gamerscore wise?
About 30,000. So
30,000. Okay,
I'm in the hole.
That's 1,000 a day. That's not too bad, really. That's what we're doing normally. About 30 to 35. Would you say, Jeremy, roughly? But anyway, for July, was it July? Yeah, July. So I'm going off the numbers off TA because the Xbox Live leaderboards can be a bit funny sometimes because it doesn't quite track midnight to midnight for the month. So, but TA generally tracks it perfect. And I did exactly 72,775. Jeremy did 72,295. So that's 480 gamer score less. So I pulled out last month, Jeremy. What are you doing? Nah, joking. Rogue, who's I'm joking. Rogue, who's not here on his break, did 8,280. So that's still a fair bit of gamer score for someone on a break. And last week I didn't include Eden Weeks, but I'm going to this time. And I can't remember exactly what I've said about him, but he's currently 30, just overtook Rogue. He's been rapidly gaining on myself and Jeremy. Last month he did 72,335, so in between us both. So somehow, without any collusion or any communication, we all did within 400 gamer score, which is crazy if you ask me, when we all did 72,000. I don't know how it ended up that way, but it just did. I guess we were all pushing each other and all... I don't know if... I suppose I'll ask you this, Jeremy. Were you watching the Xbox Live leaderboards and seeing how you were going?
I was watching the Xbox Live leaderboard, and I did actually take it out on the official Xbox Live leaderboard because I actually got 73,000 on the leaderboard, and I did snatch the number one spot in July.
You did. I did notice.
You want to know why? Because I celebrated my 30th birthday in that month as well.
Right. I did notice you were ahead.
Now 30-year-old, so happy birthday to me in case you guys haven't done that yet.
Yes, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
So,
at least you got a brief tilt at the top.
I don't feel like 30, by the way. I feel like a lot younger.
I wish I felt
very
younger. I wish I felt 30. But yeah, so I can't explain how we all ended up 400 gamer score apart for the month when you do 72,000. It's just really strange to me, but somehow that's what we did, and really status quo continues. Nothing really changed last month between us. For the first month in a long time, Eden didn't really gain on us, so I'll say that. But he's about 90,000 behind, roughly. So if it's tracking the way it's tracking, he will be right up on our hammers not too far away.
What I like to see too is you've had and there'll be, as you said, there'll be people out there that scored a lot more. But of course, when you're at the bottom or the middle of the leaderboard, scoring 100,000 gamer score in a month is quite doable because you've got everything in front of you.
That's
Obviously,
right.
when you've already got 1.5 million, there's a much smaller choice. And it wouldn't surprise me that if most of you three played exactly the same games this month, because you're sort of up to pace on what's coming out, across the board or whatever else there. But what I liked is that normally high volume hunters on both sides, they have a big month and then they back off a little bit the next month. But I can see the pace is already pretty hot for this month as well.
Yeah, we're all definitely over 1,000 a day. We're probably not. I'd be very surprised if we all went 70,000 again. To be honest, I don't think we could do that. But 40 to 50 is probably on. I'd say. Well, it depends on releases. You can't, because as you said, we are pretty much up to date. I don't think there's any 0-1s our games I haven't played now, other than a few ACAs, which I probably won't play. So I'm looking at games that I kind of said nah to back when they released, so they're like the 2 to 3 hour games in the meantime. So I don't have infinite time. I work full time, so when I get home, I've got got to deal with dinner and then whatever else I need to do. Then I can play, and then obviously got to go to bed at a reasonable time because I got to be up at 6:30 in the morning. So I don't have infinite time, and when you're doing 2 to 3 hour games, at most you can get one, maybe 1.5 done a night. You can't do two that length a night. You just can't. So unless we get a huge run again, it won't be a 70k month for me. No way.
I can see Jeremy is licking his lips. Of course, last time we met, you Rogue, Memph, you had recently hit 1.5 million. Of course, in the last month there, Jeremy, you hit 1.5 million as well. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Now, the real question has to be asked. At the moment you're controlling the Australian boards, but we need to knock this New Zealander off his perch. It's a little bit disturbing. He's taken the path of the righteous gamer. Now he only plays things of quality. But I've seen this sort of thing before, where when they get trapped, suddenly out comes the shit. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if he makes a lunge if you get too close. Are you factoring in on being number one in Oceania, either of you, or do you think there is going to be a lunge in the next month or two from that?
He's probably going to do exactly what Myth did. He's probably going to eventually respawn, and it's just going to be exactly the same situation. But look, I mean, it's for any competition, we all love each other. We all support each other. It's not like, it's gonna just, happen like straight away. I still have to earn it if I really would want to do it. Right now, I'm not 100% keen on it, but I have sort of been paying a lot more attention to it than I have had the last few years. But it's not really as easy as you think it would be to just do that, because you really have to put in a lot more time, and you have to actually be willing to actually play those games. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. So honestly, we'll see if it happens. But right now, I'm not 100% going for it. I'm sort of maybe 60 or 70% kind of going for it, but I'm not like sure if I'll get there. I mean, right now, it's a big enough bout to try and go to number one in Australia if I get there. I mean, honestly, with what I have done, I mean, I had a look at my history, and I have never done as big as a month as I've ever done in July 2021 before. So it was a big high for me. 75,000 games ago, which doesn't sound like a lot versus some of the other big heavy hitters, but for me, it was a pretty big deal. And also 1.5 million when we have had to deal with the pandemic as well. And it actually meant a hell of a lot more than it would have normally not if we weren't living with the tough circumstances at the moment. It actually meant something to me.
That's a real catch-22, because I've been working from home as well, and you're like, this is wonderful, no travel, I'm going to save all this time, and you do save a lot of time, but there's I think I earn less usually when I'm on holidays or when I'm working from home than I do normally, because of all just the random shit that goes on as well. So I totally understand that that, Jeremy. I can definitely see that. Now we are well. If you made it this far, listeners, you can realize we're not ashamed of Gamerscore in any way at all, and we're gonna move to a conversation later in this this episode about this idea of pay to win and whether you are basically just paying now for Gamerscore to cement yourself and push yourself up the boards, and we're gonna touch on all that. But before we do, obviously, when you play 72 completed games, as Mem said, you play a lot of shit, and none of us are denying that. You know, shout out to that Madeyepadeye or whatever you call it, which is some sort of platformer without needing to platform. But there's always some garbage. But what I wanted to ask you both, and we can start with you, Jeremy, if you like, and I know it's a blur of games. Was there any games in the month that you did enjoy or stood out to you that you'd like to throw out there?
Well, unfortunately, I think there's only like maybe one or two games that will all be out like for a long period of time. But I still can maybe recommend like one or two games, even if one of them came out a few years ago and the other one like finally got pulled over from the PS4 with the Series X. The first game is Spirit of the North Enhanced Edition. This one was on the PS4 first, and then it came over to the Series X, and it was a nice, beautiful game. It's nothing completely special, but it still has a nice new wave story, and still was a lot more relaxing than a lot of those other crap games. And then the second one, which was a lot more of an enjoyable experience, and I had a lot more fun with it, was Twin Mirror. I'm not sure if you guys have played that yet or not, but if you haven't, I would probably recommend that a little bit more to have a go at it, because it actually has a nicer story to it, and it's actually a lot more engaging.
Yeah, that is a great game. I don't know if you've come across that one yet. The Twin Mirrors.
No, not yet.
Square Enix, I
Well,
want to say.
now I guess I'm going to have to recommend it to Mav. Pay Twin Mirror.
Okay, I'll take a look.
Yeah. And what about for you, sir? Was there anything in this wall of games?
Oh, there's plenty I can talk about. None of them good. No, that's not true.
Nothing.
No, there's a couple. I played Chicken Police, which is brilliant. Actually, the art style is amazing. The story is pretty good, and I followed a guide, which I found a spoiler-free walkthrough, which is good because I do kind of like to play the game if I'm going to play a game. Do you know what I mean? So I don't want it ruined and knowing what's going to happen. But in doing that, I kind of didn't finish the game properly and have to do another playthrough now. But I couldn't finish that off because it just takes too long. It's a 4-hour game normally, but I've already done 4 hours and missed half the achievements because the walkthrough wasn't very good. But it is a brilliant game, and I highly, highly recommend it. It's a great little. Have any of you two played it?
I have played it on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
This is the animals.
Animals
humans.
The animals, and they got human bodies, and it's a bit weird, but I quite liked it actually. It had some pretty cool themes and dealt with some cool stuff, and yeah. What else can I talk about? Mythic Ocean. I played that. That released that month, I believe, and I quite enjoyed that. It's even though it's really only a fetch quest kind of game. I just kind of liked it. I don't know. It is an actual game. I think that's why I liked it. You're actually doing stuff, and you've got to play the whole game to finish it. Even though it only takes 2 hours roughly. I kind of liked it. You're like this entity. I don't think you really even know what you are, and there's these underwater gods, and they're all kind of hate each other, and you've got to kind of get them all liking each other by doing stuff for them and communicating for them. And there's a lot of collectibles which are a bit annoying, but nothing's too hard. And yeah, it's just a fun little game. That's to be fair, that's probably about it. I don't know.
It's so funny hearing you both speak because in the last month I've slowed down a little bit on the Xbox and I've been sucking into the Scarlet Nexus, and it's a great game or whatever else. Definitely doesn't belong in this show, but a great game nevertheless. And I was playing the last mission of that, and the last mission goes like 3 fucking hours or something. Oh. And in the back of my mind was like, this is like some serious Gamerscore. Could have been happening at this point, but no, look, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. I'm only joking there, but there are 4 games that I want to throw out. I think you've both played these games. I just want to, just a brief. Is it worth worth playing? Do I need a guide sort of situation, or can I figure it out, without missing everything without it? The first one, Where the Snow Settles. Have you both played this one?
Yes, I have, and no guide needed. Just play, and you will pop everything.
Yeah. And on a scale of is it worth playing or not? It's a Gamerscore game, or it's worth playing?
It's definitely a Gamerscore game because it's an hour. I don't miss anything. Just play. It wasn't bad. It's not the worst game you'll ever play. It just is what it is, I suppose.
A ringing endorsement. Jeremy, I don't know if you played this one, Solos. This came out, I think, last week.
And yes, I
believe
did
it's
play
some
that
sort of
one.
puzzler. What's it like? Worth playing or not?
I mean, you just basically shoot the blocks, and you can go at your own speed, and it's like, okay, well, that's not really the type of game I'm looking for, to be quite honest, because I don't like repetitivity. So, yeah.
So Gamerscore.
Gamerscore plus repetitivity plus a little bit of annoyance with accidentally shooting myself and then having to start the level again, and you got another crap game.
Okay. Now this next one is interesting. This game, this publisher scares the living shit out of me. Janky Jandusoft. There isn't a game they've produced that doesn't have a high level of jank, which look, I love most of the time. They forayed into Horror Tales: The Wine here, which actually looked like it was going to be quite a decent game. Has anyone played it? What's it like?
I have played it, and I really, really liked it. It was
good,
fantastic. There are missables, so you will kind of need a guide. But it was really, really good. Compared to stuff we play, it's a proper game. You play the whole way through. There's light puzzles. It's basically a walking sim with some light puzzles, and it was I really liked it for what it is.
Yeah.
Really liked it.
I was surprised. I played 5 minutes of it so far, which is about as usual for me, and I was quite surprised. It's a good-looking game as well for them.
Yes,
so
which is a change from what we usually play. Again,
that's right. Now, look, this last one, isn't it? I had a bit of a problem with this last game or whatever else, so I haven't actually played it yet. But I'm not sure if I want to or not. Maybe it's great. Maybe it's total Gamerscore. Maybe Jay, you've played this. I'm not sure. In Bento, what is this?
Yeah, I played that game as well, and you definitely need a guide for that one because it's very complicated stuff, and I'm not a big fan of puzzle games, because I basically have to look up a guide for puzzles, and it takes a very long period of time. I we talked about how annoying and complicated puzzles can be, so it's great for Gamerscore, but I did definitely not like that game because I'm not the biggest fan of puzzle games, honestly.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Now, look, we won't touch on new games or whatever else that's coming out now, but this seems like a good spot to transition to this idea of pay to win. And I thought it was funny when you mentioned this, Memph, and I want you to do your spiel, but the reason it was funny is because when you sent me that message was the same day I had engaged with the scalper to buy a PS5 to do spam stacks. So I thought this is a wonderful topic to come up at this point in time or whatever else. But why don't you, like, what sort of got your thinking around this? Because this is a thing that's thrown around, at all levels and not disparagingly too, I think, or whatever else. But this idea that you're just basically, I suppose, throwing money for Gamerscore. But what sort of prompted this line of thought, I suppose?
Okay. Before I say anything, I do think we throw money at Gamerscore. I'm going to say that first of all.
Good. You
throw it at trophies, we throw it at Gamerscore. I'm not going to deny that at all. But all right, it started. There was a post on the True Achievements Facebook page about. I think it had. It wasn't specifically stated, but I think it had something to do with the Ziddle on title updates. How Gamerscore is now just pay to win, pay to be top of the leaderboards, pay to be high, whatever. And I kind of took offense to it actually because I was thinking on the day I read it, at first it pissed me off a little bit, and then I calmed myself down and really thought about it. And I think to be a high-level Gamerscore person right now, is cheaper than it was 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm not saying I'm OG Gamerscore person, but I was getting Gamerscore in the 360 days. That's when it kind of kicked off for me. So I kind of know what you had to do. It wasn't like it is now. There was no like 10 0 to 1 hour games a week. So you could say that, well, that means you're buying 10 0 to 1 hour games a week. And we are, but that is still cheaper than what it used to be back then, I think, because we didn't used to get, there wasn't very many, it was Xbox Live Arcade back then, and there wasn't many games releasing there. So everything you bought had to be like physical disc based, $60 if you wanted to keep up. And then you had all the Japanese novels that released on the 360. So you couldn't do a 70K month 10 years ago. You probably couldn't do that unless you saved everything for a year. You couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to do a 30K month back then, it would have cost you a hell of a lot more than it cost me and Jeremy to do a 70K month today. So I think Gamerscore is not pay to win. I think nowadays, but again, thinking about it, because when I mentioned it to you, that was the day I saw the post and I'd made the comment and got into a little bit of an argument with somebody. I don't know who it was. Doesn't really matter who, but they disagreed with me. But I think it depends what level of Gamerscore / trophy hunter you are, because at the top level of the boards, we're going to play everything. We're going to play every game as it releases, pretty much within the release week, and we're going to keep up to date with all the quick games. So to us, yeah, we're spending money and a fair bit of it sometimes. Doesn't really ever change for us. But if you're a bit more casual about it and you decide, well, I'm going to try and top my friend's leaderboard this month, and you don't have the heavy hitters on there, any of them, and you buy all the Zidalon games in one go and drop 100K gamer score, then you are going to probably think it's pay to win. Does that make sense? Do you think? Because to us, we don't see it. Well, I'm not speaking for you yet, Jeremy, because you're going to speak in a minute about it. But to me, it's not pay to win because we are doing it anyway. It's not a change for us. So we're just seeing it as this is our price point in order to be where we are. But for people that are far more casual and they just have a good month every 6 months, they would probably see it, well, I've had to drop a lot of money this month to have this good month. So they would more be thinking that it is pay to win. So it's of course, something like that is very subjective, but I personally think it's not pay to win.
What do you think, Jeremy? I mean, you've been hardcore gamer scoring for long enough. You must have an opinion. Do you think it is pay to win, or what do you see it as?
Well, honestly, at this point in time, you really have to start wondering if, like, even saying if it is or if it isn't, it's actually relevant because of the fact that, if you're going to do it anyway, then really the answer in your mind honestly should be no, because honestly, it's going to become a thing where everybody is going to have to just accept the fact that, if you really want to be the best, you're actually going to have to be okay with the fact that, it's just a thing now because, it didn't matter if you were not a fan of it when it started, and it didn't matter if you were a fan of it, last month or not. And it really doesn't matter right now if you're not a fan of it or not. I mean, if you had to do it anyway, then honestly, I'm gonna have to just accept the fact that I'm a part of that now, and it probably isn't pay to win if I really had to be honest with myself right now, because I'm not treating it like a battle royale, if that's the equivalent of the pay to win, because it's not a battle royale out there. Not everybody is trying to get explosive out there and trying to beat everybody else to try and be the best during the month. I mean, and don't really think it's anything to do with the battle royale either, because you know it's friendly competition, like I have said before. We all congratulate each other, we all respect each other, and it don't really consider it to be a battle royale. So if I don't consider it to be pay to win, and if I don't consider it to be a battle royale, then really the only way that I can consider it is it's the way that it is now, and it's the way that we have had to live with it for the last few years now. And because we're going to continue to get tire updates now from Extarian and other publishers who have now confirmed that they're also getting tire updates as well. I mean, right now, it's really a bigger issue for me to have to deal with the tire updates because right now, I'm definitely not a fan of it. But I'm happy to do it at the moment because there just is no other way to catch up with everybody else. But yeah, I'm probably a bigger hate fan on the title updates than I am saying it's pay to win because it's probably still not true, honestly. It's not battle royale and it's not pay to win.
It's interesting. I suppose coming from the other side, the Xbox has so many advantages into this argument because you're only predominantly buying one stack of the game. You're not buying across multiple regions, and all these title updates are coming free at you as well. So you're not paying, after the fact for more achievements or more gamer score, which is quite common on the PlayStation side. I love this idea of a battle royale, Jeremy, because that's exactly what it is in the pony community and the boards. Every time you pick up that controller, you could have your neck sliced off by a welcoming gentleman in the top 50 or whatever. But it's amazing how different the communities are. But one of the things, and it's funny you say that, Memph, is that one of the things that's happened in the trophy community is that it's a higher platinum count, a higher scorer, and it's the same in the gamer score, as you said. It's become more available to a lot of people because most of these games sit in the range of under $15 Australian. So they're quite affordable. Whereas, back in the day, and I'm assuming it's the same on Xbox, when you played these quick, which were ultimately visual novels on the PlayStation, they were very expensive. So they were really limiting the field of players that could buy them or engage in them. Now it's opened up the field, to everybody or whatever for this price. And one of the things that I've noticed, and this is what I'm interested to ask you both here, is because again, most of your gamer score for both of you has come in the last few years, not necessarily maybe years ago when people were starting out, when they had to play a lot of the longer games. And I know you've played those as well, but in context with what we're getting now. But a lot of the established or whatever high level trophy accounts gave up or quit, and really burnt the bridges as they went out, which is the way you want to go, of course. But they and they're flinging around, the whole system's broken. But when you dig down and you speak to them, one of their biggest problems is not that they invested all this money or whatever else and now you can do it cheaper, but the amount of time they invested, because the platinums were 4, 8, 12 hours. They were the short games, and now you can play like 4 hours and you can get 20 platinums, 30 platinums. So people are investing a lot less time to get a big score now, and that seems to be the crux of the issue for many of them. It's not the money, but all this time they put in, and now you can put in a fraction of that time and end up with a massive score. So I want to ask you about that, Memph and Jay. Why don't we start with you, Memph? What do you think about that?
I completely agree. Time now is a lot different than what it was back, even in the first days of the Xbox One. I think we said it last podcast. It's 100K a year used to be really good, 8 to 10 years ago, and now 100K a year and you're falling behind. Like most people, nearly everyone can do 100K a year now without even really trying, and that is because of time. So easier games are coming. There's no doubt that people have already looked into it. There are far more easier games released now than there were back then. That's not up for debate. So a fraction of the time can keep you at a good pace, gamer score wise. So if anything, it's time to win to get is the more important aspect than financial, I think. And I think I've said it a long time ago, because when me and Rogue used to do comps and people used to complain, it was just because we were really good at it, because we had very good time management. And I think that is more important than raw ability. If you, how do I put it into words? Sorry. Anybody can play these games we're playing. Anybody can. But maybe not at the pace we are, because I think you get sort of accustomed to the style of game a bit better, so you can knock them out a bit quicker than other people, especially following guides. If you haven't had much experience following guides, it's hard to start with. But I assume Jeremy follows guides for lots of games as well. It's a lot easier because you've followed a lot of guides previously. You kind of know, sometimes I'm following a guide that Bill's Illuminati does in Achievement Land, and I'm ahead of him in the guide, because I kind of know if something was coming up that I would miss, he would tell me well before I'm at the point of missing it, if that makes sense. So I can kind of be half a step ahead of him in the guide all the time, so I'm not always pausing the guide. That's where you lose a lot of time when you're following guides. Is, well, he's ahead of me now, so I got to pause it. Then I go do it
Yeah.
what he's just done. So it's all about, yeah. I think it's all about good time management, and over a longer period of time, better time management means more games played. Really, overall. So that's how I think we're able to keep the pace we are. I haven't spoken to Eden at all, and really I haven't spoken to Jeremy about it either. But I assume they don't have infinite time. They don't have 16 hours a day where they can sit in front of their console. So there are people I would think that would have more time than us to play, at least from what it looks like from my point of view. I know there's people that would have more time than me to play. I don't have heaps of time. I have, like I said before, about 4 or 5 hours tops a day. Tops, absolute maximum. So there'd be people that would have more time than that, and whether you choose to play long games, short games, it's just all down to good time management, I think. So yeah, I've rambled for a bit, but I agree with you.
Yeah. What do you think, Jeremy? Because I mean, we're heading this way where the games are, with the title updates. Maybe you play the game 3/4 or a half the way through the first time, but every title update afterwards is just turning the game on, pretty much. And you voice that you're not a big fan of these title updates, but you must concede that it's would you really want to go back to the days of playing 8 to 12 hour games where there was nothing like this available?
Well, sometimes, when you like are in that position where like if you actually could go back in that magical time machine that we sometimes wish we could go back to. I mean, sometimes, it could have been as easy as like what would it have been like if we never would have had any of that? What if the Xbox One didn't exist, and they didn't make it happen, Would it have even been a thing? I mean, like I was not really big about the game score until they decided to just make it as easy as they decide to make it, and then it's
Yeah.
like I don't know if I should be doing this or not because I mean I have to understand those two big things at the end of the day. I have to understand how much time I have to give up, and I have to understand how much money I have to spend in order to do that. I mean, having to commit to both things is not exactly as easy as just like, oh, let's just go ahead and do it because it's not like I really care. You're supposed to care, You're actually supposed to care because, if you're gonna be spending that much money on that all the time, I mean, it can become kind of a concerning problem because, you really should be trying to spend your money on other things and not always spend it on games. I mean, that's kind of been an issue, unfortunately. I just spend too much money on games, so if I could change anything, maybe just not spend as much on that. But
Yeah.
with what I have always said about, and I probably did say it on my post or whatever I said, it's just not the same. I don't know if I really like what the system has become now all of a sudden. The system where true achievements and game score, all of those, like many people have said before, are just not really being cared about now as much as they used to. And, all those people have probably said, if they could, they really wish they could go back to the way that it used to be. And honestly, I kind of just wish that I could also go back to that time because, that was when I was actually most happy, to be quite honest. I didn't care about the game score, I didn't care about my statistics. I only really cared about playing the good games because really, I should be playing those awesomely good games and I shouldn't keep on playing with those crappy games all the time because, it's just getting too repetitive and it's getting under my skin a little bit too much and I keep on doing it anyway because sometimes I just have too much of an urge. But if I actually could, I wouldn't hesitate to just go back to how I used to play, to be quite honest, because that was what made me happy.
It's a funny thing you bring that up, because one of the things, the way that I play, and I mean, predominantly on the other system, but even on the Xbox as well, is that I play exactly what I want to play, whenever I want to play, and then I'll go through periods where I'll score hugely, and that's quite a common thing on the PlayStation side for higher up players, that they will be playing all the big games, Assassins, whatever else. They won't play, any stacks or any short stuff for perhaps 3 weeks. They'll go down or whatever, and then they'll hit back with 100,000 without a problem. Perhaps a bit like Rogue does or whatever, and that's quite a normal thing. And there are, of course, players, and you can see through their profile. I'm sure the same on the Xbox, that all they play is garbage all the time. And I know, Memph, you play your simulators as well. We haven't touched on that, but you're not just playing this stuff all the time. You play stuff for fun. You Sea of Thieves as well and stuff. And there are these people, though, that literally are just playing these games all the time. And, we know how long these games take. And if all you're playing is your Easy Leica and your East Asia Soft and your, dubious 1 hour titles, you're not actually really, like, I mean, you're putting time in, but you're not putting in huge amounts of time or whatever else. So they either, I don't know, they're either just gaming less or gaming less, I suppose, or maybe they are playing this other stuff on the side. But I think there is plenty of time, as you say, if time management's done right. I want to carefully touch on the money side in a moment, but the other thing that I noticed, and I'm sure you'll both agree, is the more of these sort of games you play, especially from certain publishers, the more you start to understand how the games work, how their trophy lists work, or Gamerscore lists work. Quite often, as you said, you can play without the guide, or you can skim the guide because you roughly know what you may need to know, or what you need to watch out for. And I think it's a funny thing, because I'm not a fast player by any stretch, but for most games that are under an hour, I'm within the top 50 consistently on the PlayStation side, often without using a guide, because you just understand how the game works. And I don't feel like I'm playing fast, but then when I look at the times of others, you realize that, I suppose, just from having played these sort of games so much, you really have improved your speed or whatever. Memph, I don't know. I think that's sort of
right.
what you're saying.
That's what I was saying. You kind of get accustomed to the style of games and the way the guides are. You don't really need to follow it, minute by minute, pause the video, do that, what he just did. You know what I mean? You don't have to be like that for most games anymore. When you're doing as many as we do anyway.
Now, I want to touch on the money, but I don't want to talk about how much we spend or whatever else, because I think we all know what we know what we're spending, so we can assume what the other people are spending. But what I do want to ask, and this is something that I try to draw the line with myself, Jay. I'm not particularly worried by the amount I spend, but I'm worried maybe about the amount I will spend on one game. Now, I find this interesting because if you buy four big games a month, or whatever, four big releases, so one a week, which is not out of the realms of possibility for a hardcore gamer, you're probably spending 300 to 400 Australian anyway, depending on where you're buying them. If you're spending 300 to 400 a month on these short games, you're basically getting everything, because, as we said, most of them are 5 or 10, within exceptions. But my question to you both is a personal question for me. Where does the price point kick in when it is a short game where you're like, nah, that is just too much for it? Like, and I'm not talking a specific game here, but is there a sort of number, like, you see on the store and it's like, well, that's game's $20 or $30 or 40. It's a 1 hour or 2 hour completion, but that's just too much. Do you have a number like that, Memph, or not?
Well, I kind of do. I do have a gaming budget. Like we with my family, we budget properly, and we see where all the money's going every single time. And there is a section in that for my gaming budget, which my wife is lovely allowed me to do. So there is, it kind of depends. So each week I have a certain amount to spend, and obviously I can carry that over if I don't spend it all. And if a game comes out and is, let's just say, a $20 game. Now, if that's at the start of like a week, I tend to think I can give that one a miss for a while, and I'll wait and see. Depends how I am on the back end of the pay cycle. So there isn't really, there is and there isn't. So I won't just day one jump. See, where that Snow Settles is a good example. That's $14.95, I think, and that's probably been out a week before I decided to play it, because it was cheaper stuff that was a similar time length that I did first. So I'm kind of, I don't have an unlimited budget, So I kind of do have to be a little bit careful when the cheaper games are a bit more expensive. And yeah, so so maybe my number's that $15 mark. Maybe I'm not 100% sure because I decided to leave that one for a week. So maybe that's about my price point. These little long games, as you said, release somewhere between the $7 to $10 mark. They're usually around there. Those easy games, so I can just jump on them all day, really. So
yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting number. Jay, do you have is there a number you'll draw the line at for a quick game, or does it not phase you?
Well, it's kind of maybe a bit of both, honestly. Sometimes I will just be like, well, no matter how much the price is, I mean, if I really want the game score, I'm just gonna have to put up a bit. But there are sometimes games where it's just like, okay, well, you were gonna ask me to pay like $60, $70 for 1 to 2 hour game. That's when I'm probably gonna have to draw the sand. Like, I'm not paying $60 or $70 if it's even 1 to 2 hours. I mean, that's just too much, and
me
I
either.
still gotta be careful with how much I spend because I need to spend my money on other important things, and sometimes you have to say no. I mean, sometimes there's no nos, and sometimes I don't really care, but sometimes I do care. So it's kind of a bit of both, honestly.
Yeah, that's a good answer too. And then, of course, we always get screwed by something like Subnautica that comes along and sits right on the threshold
Yeah,
of getting us with time.
Yeah,
But
well, what about
it's
that? I mean, it starts off being like, oh, this is actually going to be worth it. And then you sadly realize, are you really willing to pay $20 to $30 if it's now going to be a 1 to 2 hour game instead of being a 30 to 35 hour game?
that's yeah.
Isn't it worse on the PlayStation side, CJ, though, because you have to buy everything 5 or 6 times?
Well, look,
Well, yes.
I've been ruined by the Xbox and the Game Pass in particular because you're getting so many of the bigger games on there as well for free or for subscription or whatever else, and the sales on Xbox aren't too bad either. For the most of the small games come on sale when they release for 10%. Not all of them, but a lot of them, 10 or 20, which is unusual on the PlayStation side to happen. So I'm in the reverse position now, man. Where I've become a tight ass on the PlayStation. I'm like, oh, it's $10. I'm not sure if I want to spend that,
Right.
because I'm so used to getting it. I know the price on the Xbox for the same game,
Yeah.
but you do what you have to do or whatever. The one thing that's been great this week for me though is that the PlayStation has done this wonderful thing. Xbox hasn't really done it, where they leaned into a new list for the PS5, and many of the games on PS4, the short games, you receive for free on the PS5. So you're basically you got 2 copies of the game,
Right.
without realizing, well, at the
That's
time.
nice.
So it is very nice. So it's gives you an inflated sense of ego for a week or two while you are while you keep up without spending any money. But it's funny you mention that because I do have a number as well. As you say, Jay, if it's something that I want, the number is irrelevant, I think. But yeah, I do sort of sit around that 15 or 20 as well. That's why I found it funny you said that number, because I think,
Oh, yeah.
the problem is unless you're playing everything as it comes out, you're always going to be a little behind anyway. So sometimes it doesn't hurt to be behind on games that are slightly on the edge of the price.
That's
I
right.
actually want to talk about the sale competition with the big free consoles, because right now it's a frenzy war between over who really has the best overall sales when it comes to like whether or not it's a good deal and whether or not it's affordable and whether or not it's within the budget. Out of the three, which one is the best, Nintendo, Xbox, or PlayStation?
Well,
Well, I don't think it's Nintendo.
It's not Nintendo
Although,
because they basically never have sales, so it's not them.
no.
well, the small games perhaps, but it's funny, because I know you're both not averse to Artifacts Mundi, point and clicks, and they can be pricey for what they are. I think definitely
Yeah.
on the PlayStation, but I dropped onto the Switch the other day and they were having a sale of them, and you could pick them up for $3, and they were like
Oh, wow.
25 on the PlayStation. So
Wow, that's
it's the
cheap.
cost of the achievements and
$3
trophies.
instead of being $20.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So they know their market, but it's interesting, isn't it? I think so.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think Xbox for sales do pretty well. Wouldn't you agree? I don't really know much about the PlayStation sales. And obviously, Steam sales kill everything really because they're amazing. But I think for what we see, the problem now with the sales is I look at them every week, and there's just nothing there for me because I've played everything.
Yeah.
Well,
From
yeah, that kind of is the problem when you play everything and then they put it on sale and it's just like, oh, why we played that? I mean, if I actually would have played that, when it was on sale, I would have actually saved a lot more money. That's the issue nowadays.
That's right.
You already paid it, and you paid probably more than what you should have not paid for.
That's right.
Well, it's so funny. We had appeared on a podcast the other week, and a conversation came up about how many games you'll sort of allow yourself to own that you haven't played. Do you have a number? Because we all have a backlog, that's ridiculous number, thousands, but we don't count that, as you know, Memph. We just count this number that's more attainable. And they said, yeah, like I try not to go above 20 or 50 or whatever. So I don't know if you have a number like that, Memph. I'll throw mine out so we don't feel, and coming off the back of I have about 5,000 PlayStation games, but I try to keep it to only 600 PS4 5 games at a time that I haven't played. And it sort of cracks me up because of what you said there, Jay, is like, why buy anything, because you have 600 here already. But I don't know, do you have a number like this, man, or you've just given up completely?
No, I've just completely given up because I kind of collect games as well, at least Xbox games. So I own, I don't know how many I own exactly now, but I nearly own 1,000 360 games and 300 physical. This is just physical. I'm talking only physical. 300 physical Xbox One games, and I know half of them I'm never even going to install. So they're just there to look pretty now. They're as soon as you open my front door, if you walk in my house, you see my game collection. So it's like a centerpiece of our house. But everyone that would come in knows about my gaming. So yeah.
I want to thank you both on that topic because it's a sort of topic that when you're outside of the hardcores or whatever else, you just sort of you never really understand their thinking, I suppose. And I mean, we're all addicted or whatever to the bling in whichever system and whichever way. But it's nice to sort of talk openly and honestly because yes, it's expensive. Yes, it's time consuming, and Jay's wants to play the good games as well, so you still can. You're only in second there. You got plenty of time, but you can balance it all out, and have a bit of everything. And one of the things over the last 2 months, is I've heard so many people just, oh, it's all broken. It all sucks. I hate Gamerscore. I hate trophies. I hate everything. And I've gone the other way. And I think you're similar, Memph. I think that's why I find it interesting talking to you and Jay as well, despite what you say, that we really do enjoy that as well. That is, I mean, the metagame is so strong for us as well. And I don't think there's anything embarrassing about that or negative. I think in a lot of ways it's a wonderful thing. So I don't know. I'm sure you both feel that to a degree. Otherwise we wouldn't do it. I don't think there'd be anything driving you forward to do it.
It's very true. If we didn't enjoy it, we wouldn't be doing it because sometimes it's not enjoyable when you're playing 2 or 3 games in a row that are just rubbish and you do question why you do it sometimes, I think. And then you play something that's fun and you fall back in love with, at least I do, of Gamerscore hunting again. So it's different. See, talking with you guys, you understand the Gamerscore world, the trophy world. You understand what it's like. But I have a few friends that don't quite get it, who are gamers, mind you, and they just don't understand. Like this is part of the reason why I kind of hide offline when I play, because I get a friend that messages me going, "What is this rubbish you're playing?" Like they just see the title and that just by title alone, they're like, it is rubbish. They're not wrong, but they're like, "Why don't you come and play something fun with me?" And I'm like, "Because I've got to pop this 2,000 Gamerscore tonight," kind of thing. And you do question why you do that sometimes, I think, but I do enjoy it. And I think I said last show, I'm not going to stop. Not in the short term anyway. I've far too invested and enjoy it too much. And you spoke about it as a metagame, and it is a metagame. And I find it, even though I don't really have a lot of interaction with people, like the higher ups, as I'll call them, I still enjoy watching. What how the top 10 are duking it out, and if somebody puts a post up on TA about how they're overtaking, this person. And I click on their profile and I have a look and see, they've been chasing them down for ages and they finally got them, and this is how much they've done, and it's all fun for me. I like leaderboards, I like the statistics, and to me, that's part of the metagame, I think. So that's the part I enjoy.
Yeah, and I think as you said, I really enjoy talking to both of you because it's exactly what you say. I deal with some people, play with games with some people, and you would never talk about this stuff because they're just like, oh my God, that's fucking insane. But, it's interesting. It's sort of like we click on the same wavelength. And I think we're all, we're sort of marathon gamers in a way that, we've been playing over years and we'll continue to play it this way. But what I'm hoping maybe, in a month's time when we reconvene and we'll do whatever, but maybe the topic we might touch on is Gamerscore events, because one of the things that I find the most exhausting and probably the thing that would make me throw the console out the window and give up completely is these really intensive, 1 month or whatever it is, slam as much as you can, or even if it's a skill-based thing or whatever. I find that really, really draining compared to the sort of stuff that we do or you guys are doing with consistently big numbers. So perhaps, and I know you've got a lot of experience with this, Jay and Memph as well in particular, perhaps we'll touch on some of this stuff next time.
I hope we do. I hope Rogue's back, because we can talk a lot about how we did the comps, and that's kind of what it is. It's it's a big, huge avalanche of Gamerscore in a very short period of time against people. So those our experiences there will be good, I think.
I'm looking forward to that. So look, just before I let you two gentlemen go and smash out, a couple of quick gamer scores before it gets too late tonight, I do have to throw out, Jeremy, is there anything you're looking forward to in this month coming out? Is there anything you have your eye on?
Anything that I'm looking forward to? Maybe I might try another one of those games out. I have heard a lot about this game, and I might actually give it a go, because it actually sounds like the sort of game that I might actually like. I might give the Ascent a go, because it sounds like the sort of game that I might actually enjoy.
Excellent. Yeah, I like that. That's definitely worth a look on Game Pass. And if I have to ask you, when will you be starting Lawn Mower Simulator? I know it hit today on the store.
Tonight.
Oh, here we go.
I'm going to drop.
Simulator, here we come.
I'll be jumping off here and going and doing that new Easy 1000 that just released, because I haven't done that yet, and then straight into Lawnmower Simulator straight after that. So you know me too well already. But
look, I think that's wonderful. No.
There is another game I'm looking forward to that releases very soon, and that's Hades. I've heard a lot of good stuff about it, and I'm going to give it a go. Even though it's definitely not a Gamerscore game, it's a roguelite, so they're never Gamerscore games, and I've just heard a lot of good stuff, so I'm going to give it a go. That's out, I think, this week, next week, something, about a week's time, roughly, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, I'm going to throw one out there. It hits the Game Pass. I believe it hits this week, possibly on Friday. I'm not sure if it's going to be quick. Look, it may be, or it may be an utter nightmare. It is the Art of the Rally. It looks like an indie rally game, which is, look, it's just what I need after WRC 9 to tie me into WRC 10 in a couple of weeks' time. So look, if you've made it this far, you can tell it's just a casual conversation between three gamers that, look, they actually game. Unlike some people that just like to talk the game, these guys back it up with the numbers. By all means, share this around. We're only around once a month or so, but you can reach out to us in any way you so wish. These guys are on True Achievements. They're wonderful dudes. Drop them a line, say hi, say you listen, say whatever you like. I suppose maybe even ask them a question or two about Gamerscore. As always, Jay and Memph, it's been a pleasure to talk to you tonight. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me on as well.
Thanks again, CJ. And I just want to say one final shout out before we do go. I want to say congrats to Games of Dane for being the 10th Australian to hit 1 million Gamerscore. He did it last month. So there is now 10 Australians at it over the 1 million mark.
Congratulations. How fast do I have to move to be the 11th? Have I got some time or not?
11th place is 40k away, so...
it's not looking good for me.
No. But, yeah, you can just break into the top 50 and see where you go from there. How about that?
That's right. It's time to get back on the easy like. Have a good week, listeners. We'll be back in a month. Catch you then.